Italy called them obsolete, Ukraine turned them deadly. Once considered relics of the Cold War, Italy's M113 armored personnel carriers were headed for the scrap heap until the war in Ukraine gave them a second life. Now these so-called obsolete machines are back on the front lines and they're doing serious damage. Ukraine's military has transformed these aging APCs into fast, flexible, and unexpectedly lethal assets, upgrading their armaments, repurposing them into battlefield ambulances, and even adapting them for drone defense. In May 2025, Italy delivered 400 more of these to Ukraine. That's just the latest twist in a remarkable story of military improvisation and battlefield innovation. Let's take a closer look at the deal, the M113, and how Ukraine is using them. The latest package of military aid, confirmed by Italian Defense Minister Guido Crosetto, aims to enhance Ukraine's ground mobility and situational awareness, which are critical elements in countering the ongoing Russian offensive. It underscores Rome's commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity and reinforces Italy's role as a key player in European defense cooperation. The 400 M113s supplied to Ukraine as the cornerstone of this package appear to be the result of a larger Italian operation to reactivate older, stored equipment that has been ongoing for over a year. In May 2024, satellite imagery revealed that a substantial amount of equipment was being moved out of long-term storage warehouses, including Leopard 1 tanks, M109L self-propelled guns, and M113s. Of the M113s, some were likely destined for the scrap heap. In October 2022, Italy had 722 M113s in its inventory. However, rather than send these to Ukraine, the Italian army decommissioned them through a detailed process of demilitarization, disassembly, and disposal. The entire process was spearheaded by NSPA, the NATO Support and Procurement Agency. Italy earned €3 million, around $2.9 million, by selling 8 million kilograms of recycled M113 scrap on the international metal markets. This process also saved 41,000 tons of CO2 emissions, with the recycling of non-ferrous and ferrous metals bolstering Italy's circular economy. It had been speculated that perhaps the entire inventory of 722 M113s had been scrapped, and in fact they were, but a separate batch of upgraded M113s, specifically the Italian VCC2 Camellino variant, now appears to be heading to Ukraine. What's still unclear at this stage is how many of these will be delivered. After all, the M113 remains the largest family of armored personnel carriers ever made. A fully tracked armored personnel carrier, or APC, it was developed and produced by the FMC Corporation. The standard model weighs around 13.6 tons, has a length of 15 feet 11.5 inches, a width of 8 feet 9.7 inches, and a height of 8 feet 2 inches. With an operational range of around 300 miles, it can reach maximum speeds of 42 miles per hour on land and 3.6 miles per hour swimming. It was fitted for 2 crews and 11 passengers, though some models can carry up to 15. Over 80,000 units were produced between the 1960s and 2007, after which orders for new units ceased. However, with ongoing modifications and upgrades, M113s are expected to remain in service for decades to come. Altogether, M113 variants served in the militaries of 50 nations and are still in active use with 44 of them today. These nations are spearheaded by the US, which still has an estimated 4,200 M113A2 and A3s in active service, plus another 8,000 more in storage. That's despite having been actively upgrading its massive inventory with the likes of the Bradley for several decades. Other major armies still making significant use of M113 variants include Israel, which has 6,000, of which 500 are believed to still be in active service, Turkey, which has 2,813 M113A2T1 and T2s, Pakistan, which has 2,300 M113A1, A2, P and M113s with an RBS 70 fitting, Egypt, which has 2,722 of various kinds, Greece, which has 1,852 M113A1 and M113A2s, plus 187 of the M577 variation. Saudi Arabia, which has 1,190 M113A4s, and Taiwan, which has 650. There are also hundreds still in active service with smaller armies like Bahrain, Chile, Cambodia, and Iraq. However, there are also hundreds still in service with modern high-tech armies like Germany, Norway, Poland, Canada, Australia, and Denmark. The 400 that Italy is now supplying to Ukraine are also not the first M113s that have been supplied to Ukraine, whether provided as military aid or purchased. In fact, these additions bring the total M113 variants supplied to Ukraine to around 1,900, making the nation one of the biggest users of the vehicle in the world today. Bizarrely enough, even Russia has reportedly been seen fielding M113s captured from Ukraine during the war, hinting at the major attrition its stocks of its own armored vehicles have suffered. Russia is believed to have captured at least 33 M113s of different kinds from Ukraine to date. So where have all the other M113s supplied to Ukraine come from and which variants have been supplied? Deliveries actually started in the early months of the war in April 2022 with a shipment of M113s from the US. While it's not clear how many were supplied and which variants, from the photos released at the time by the US Army, it's clear that some were of the ambulance variety. Indeed, one of the main reasons this legendary vehicle has continued to make a mockery of its supposed obsolescence is its adaptability. That makes it an ideal vehicle to be modified to fill alternate roles like performing medical evacuations, and has also allowed it to be customized with a variety of weapon systems and other modifications over the years. For example, the basic M113 is built of 5083 aircraft-quality aluminium alloy, which comes with both pros and cons. On the plus side, aluminium alloy is lighter than steel, which makes the vehicle more mobile than most other armored vehicles, which are primarily made from the latter metal. This lightweight frame also means a relatively small engine can be used to power the vehicle, namely a Detroit 6V53 V6 two-stroke diesel engine of 318 cubic inches, with an Allison TX101 3-speed automatic transmission. So it's powerful enough to lug a large payload across country, but light enough to be transportable by fixed and rotary wing aircraft. The original M113s can also swim without deploying flotation curtains. They are propelled in the water by their tracks, using only a front-mounted trim vane. These semi-amphibious capabilities have come in handy for Ukraine, especially in the fall and spring, when much of the front lines turn into mud, bog, or worse. The downside of aluminium alloy is that it requires around 3 times the thickness of steel for an equivalent level of ballistic protection. The armor of the M113 was only designed to withstand 7.62mm fire and to provide shell splinter protection, which was generally acceptable on the battlefields of the 1960s and 70s. But as the power of artillery and other offensive weapons increased over the years, this lightweight armor has become one of the main vulnerabilities of the M113. In comparison, a modern APC such as the Striker has all-round 7.62mm armor-piercing protection, plus 14.5mm protection on the front, sides, and rear, and protection against anti-personnel mines. That's undoubtedly more protection than you get with an M113. However, as testament to its adaptability, all variants of the M113 are capable of mounting anti-landmine applique armor, providing an additional layer of protection if desired. The M113 offers even more flexibility when it comes to its onboard armaments. The most common weapon fit is a single 50 caliber M2 machine gun. However, the mount can also be fitted with a 40mm Mark 19 automatic grenade launcher, and several anti-tank weapons can additionally be attached. In particular, the US Army developed special kits that allowed the M47 Dragon and BGM-71 TOW anti-tank missile systems to be mounted on M113s. In the case of the M47, the system was mounted to the existing machine gun mount without removing the machine gun, allowing the commander to use both weapons. A large array of turrets and fixed mounts is also available, with which to mount a high-explosive cannon, ranging from 20mm to 105mm. These cannons can function as assault guns and fire support, while in many cases still leaving enough room inside to carry almost the full contingent of troops. As you might expect from a vehicle approaching 70 years of distinguished service, the majority of M113s still in action today are not the original models that rolled off the production lines in the early 60s. The original model had a gasoline engine, which had already been replaced by the more economical and fire-resistant Detroit 6V53 diesel by 1964. That variant was dubbed the M113A1, A1 being a standard suffix used by the US Army to indicate a diesel design. In 1979, the M113A2 took its bow, featuring improved engine cooling, higher strength torsion bars to increase ground clearance, shock absorbers to reduce the effects of ground strikes, and new 4-tube smoke grenade launchers attached. These modifications increased the weight substantially to 25,880 pounds, making it more rugged but decreasing its ability to swim. Then in 1987, the M113A3 was introduced, featuring several improvements for enhanced battlefield survival. They included a yoke for steering, a brake pedal, a more powerful turbocharged engine, internal spall liners for improved protection, and armored external fuel tanks on both sides of the rear ramp. So those are the 4 basic M113 models. However, over the years, a huge number of vehicles based on the running gear of the M113 have been created, ranging from APCs to tactical ballistic missile launchers and mortar carriers to armored flamethrowers. And as seen with the US's first delivery of M113s to Ukraine in April 2022, they've been adapted into tracked battlefield ambulances. The second delivery of M113s to Ukraine was also announced in April 2022, but this time, the provider was Denmark, and we do know which variants were supplied. The Danish Defence Acquisition and Logistics Organization had actually announced plans in 2020 to dispose of their obsolete APCs, and had planned to withdraw them from combat completely in 2023. Then they found a better use for them in Ukraine. The Danes had accumulated up to 700 M113s over the years. Many of them were significantly upgraded during the 1990s and 2010s, gaining the designations M113 G3DK and M113 G4DK, and the units that were sent to Ukraine are of this type. The Danes added a more powerful 10.6-litre turbocharged diesel engine with a capacity of 300 horsepower, which can be replaced in field conditions within an hour. They also attached external tanks, modernized the tracks, upgraded the heater, and upgraded the braking and control system. By July 2022, footage was already circulating of Ukrainian troops in an M113G 4DK, sporting a Browning M2 12.7mm heavy machine gun. The Netherlands was the next to announce the delivery of M113 variants to Ukraine in May, although they seem to have beaten the Danes in terms of the delivery date. Footage was circulating of Ukrainian troops on Dutch YPR-765 armored personnel carriers even before the end of the month. The YPR-765 is based on a modified version of the M113A1 and can carry a crew of 3 and up to 7 passengers. It also comes armed with a 12.7mm heavy machine gun in its basic version, but an Mk19 40mm automatic grenade launcher can additionally be installed. Although the Dutch retired the YPR-765 in 2012, up to 500 were thought to be still in storage when Russia invaded. Clearly some, if not all of them, have subsequently been sent to Ukraine. Lithuania swiftly followed the Dutch with delivery of another batch of M113s arriving in Ukraine from the Baltic nation starting in June 2022. These included conventional variants, along with a version with 120mm self-propelled mortars on an M113 chassis called the Panzermörser, formerly in service with the German army. The Lithuanians also included another variant dubbed the M577 command post carrier and provided training for Ukrainian forces in Lithuania. The Panzermörser uses a 120mm Tampella mortar with a range of 4 to 4.5 miles and can carry 60 mortar rounds and a crew of 5. The original vehicles, bought from Germany in 2005-06, were given a major upgrade by Israeli defense firm Elbit, with the modified Beasts entering service in Lithuania in 2015. They now sported a new digital fire control system, fire adjustment and observation instruments, and mortar barrels. And today at least some of them are dropping mortars on Russians. The M577 command post carrier is an interesting M113 variant designed to function on the battlefield as a mobile command post or tactical operations center, usually at the battalion level. It features a raised upper hull and roof-mounted auxiliary power unit and is generally unarmed. It's usually this variant that is remodified into an armored ambulance, but it's also been modified into a fire control vehicle and tactical response vehicle used by law enforcement agencies. After the Lithuanians, the next news of M113 deliveries came early in 2023, when it was announced that the UK had bought and subsequently shipped to Ukraine 46 M113A1B APCs from Belgian defense company OIP Land Systems. However, it seems clear that these units had already been delivered some time before the announcement. It's also unclear which specific M113A1B variants were delivered. The M113A1B is a modified version of the A1, developed by BMF in Belgium under license from the US from 1982 onwards. Modifications included using the suspension of M113A2 instead, and the installation of an MBC protection system for protection against nuclear, biological, and chemical threats. Altogether, 525 units were delivered to the Belgian army, but these are across 13 different variants, including a basic APC, ambulance, command post, tank hunter, engineering vehicle, and carrier vehicle for fast-mounted battlefield surveillance radar ELM-2130A, among others. It's unclear which of these was sent to Ukraine, but all of them certainly sound like they come in handy. M113s in various modifications have subsequently also been transferred to Ukraine by Spain, Portugal, Australia, and Belgium, and indirectly by Luxembourg and Germany through their participation in joint supply programs for these APCs. The Australian version of the M113 is a 2007 upgrade that bears the designation M113AS4. Its armor is reinforced with ceramic slabs, protecting against heavy machine guns of caliber up to 14.5mm. It also has protection underneath against mine explosions and improvised explosive devices, a turret equipped with a Browning M2HB QCB 12.7mm machine gun, and an extra pair of rollers to handle the extra size and weight. What's more, the APC sent to Ukraine was specially upgraded for Ukrainian military needs. At least one vehicle received the Turkish Sarp Dual remote weapon station from Aselsan, used to counteract drones. The Aselsan RWS has 2 armament mounts, which can be a 7.62mm machine gun, a 12.7mm heavy machine gun, or a Mark 19 grenade launcher. In addition to all the M113s provided as aid, Ukrainians have also cobbled together and bought some on several occasions. In September 2023, the Ministry of Energy, together with 23 enterprises of the Ukrainian fuel and energy industry, purchased M113 APCs for the Ukrainian Steel Border Brigade from one of the European countries. The vehicles were reportedly in storage and modernized before being sent to Ukraine. Another example is the December 2023 initiative of Ukrainian news outlet United 24 Media, during which 27 M113 APCs were transferred to the National Guard of Ukraine. And now another 400 are due to arrive in Ukraine, courtesy of Italy. It's unclear whether the variants that will be delivered are already part of the diverse selection Ukraine already possesses, or whether they'll add a few more platters to the buffet table, so to speak. But one thing's for sure, the Ukrainians are happy to receive them, however old they may be. The basic APCs have proven to be a reliable asset for the Ukrainian military, and have been used constantly for daily frontline missions throughout the war. According to Ukrainian military sources, the M113 is easy to control and doesn't require long-term training. That's a huge benefit compared to some of the more modern and illustrious APCs that have been provided to Ukraine, which sometimes require overcoming quite a steep learning curve to master. Because the Ukrainian army is used to them already, the Italian M113s can slot right in and be put to use almost immediately. Also, due to its small size, the M113 easily maneuvers through rugged terrain and, as noted earlier, even on some water in some variants. The sources say that it effectively transports troops to designated locations, facilitates the evacuation of wounded personnel from the battlefield, and is renowned for its exceptional off-road capabilities. Furthermore, despite its high maneuverability and ability to pull off sharp turns, the track remains secure and does not disengage, unlike the Soviet-era BMPs, which formed a large part of Ukraine's APC fleet pre-war. That's not the only advantage these antiques have over Soviet analogs, according to Ukrainian military engineers. They're also easier to repair than Soviet IFVs or APCs, in part due to the accessibility of the units. And from the motor mechanics perspective, there are no issues with the formation of puddles of lubricant and fuel on the floor in the squad compartment, unlike their Soviet analogs. Perhaps that's why shortly after they capture an M113 intact, the Russians seem to start using it too. Ultimately, the fact that these old vehicles can still be so useful in such a high-tech war just goes to show that even in the fast-moving, ever-evolving world of weapons, sometimes age is just a number. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, check out our video about how Ukraine turned another antique, the S-200 missile launcher, into a fearsome weapon.